Hello everyone and welcome to an excellent game from round 5 of this year's FIDE World Rapid Championship. We're gonna see the game, then we're gonna discuss the standings after 5 rounds. And before we check out the game, just 2 quick updates. Alireza has won both of his games from round 1 and 2 in Charta, and he will be playing 5 more rounds. So he is definitely trying to overtake Wesley and qualify for the candidates tournament via the rating spot. And I believe, well, as he is a lot higher rated than everyone else, that he will need a 7 out of 7. And also there's been there's always drama in the chess world, but just yesterday after the 5 rounds were finished, Yanni Pomnishi tweeted this on Twitter or X now. He said, "Dear FIDE chess and organizers of the championship, as known, all animals are equal, hence the title of the video, but some are more equal than others. Is it fair to provide Magnus Carlsen a personal lounge where he can rest and prepare to the game using a laptop while nobody else has such an opportunity?" To which FIDE replied, "To make it clear, none of the participants of the Rapid and Blitz Championship have been granted with special conditions, and even if in between rounds any of the players has been provided with an access to external premises as per the invitation of FIDE officials, full fair play control has been provided. Furthermore, everyone is allowed to use their gadgets in between the rounds according to the rules." Fabio also quoted Jan, and he said that he cannot stress enough that it is important for all the players to have equal playing conditions. And yeah, what do you guys think about that? I've heard Tarje also mention on Twitter that Magnus's father, Henrik, said that Magnus does not have access to a laptop or any sort of a computer in his private room. So what do you think about that? Some people are saying that, yeah, it's okay since Magnus has the most fans, that, you know, people annoy him the most after the rounds, and he should have private quarters, and, you know, he is sort of the best player ever, and, you know, a multiple-time world champion and stuff. And some are saying that no, you know, players should just have equal playing conditions. So what do you think about that? Your comments are welcomed as usual. Now let's check out this game. Round 5, Maksim Chigaev versus Vidit Gujrathi. Let's check it out. Maksim has the white pieces and he opens with pawn to c4. He starts with an English opening and Vidit replies with pawn to e5, so the King's English version. We have knight to c3, knight f6, knight to f3, and knight to c6. Always the 4 knights of the English will emerge on the board. G3, the fianchetto line, and now bishop to b4, putting pressure on the knight here. So bishop to g2, and now castles, and we have knight to d5, where Vidit could capture if he wants to, but it's a very well-known line, doesn't really do all that much for black. To give you a quick example, let's say if you trade here, you have to move the knight comes to d4, let's say everything gets traded off here, both black and white have a set of doubled pawns on the d file, let's say castles, pawn to d6, a3, you chase away the bishop, even chase it away, you know, all the way, something like e3, and okay, you can play it, nothing spectacular. But it is more customary to go rook to e8, which is what Vidit does. Castles, castles and pawn to a5 now. Stopping a3 and b4 anytime soon. So d3 and now pawn to h6. And there are a couple of moves that have been played here, like a3 has been played, b3 has been played, even knight captures on b4 has been played. But Vidit goes, Maksim goes bishop to e3. And it is now, as of move 9, that we have a completely new game. So what is the idea? Well, for one, if a3 is played, you will not have bishop to c5. So how does black, you know, accommodated this move? Well, he plays pawn to d6. Now the bishop has a retreating square on c5. Knight captures on f6. Queen captures, and now knight to d2, remaneuvering the knight over to e4 to harass the queen. Queen to g6, and now pawn to a3. Vidit goes to c5, and Maksim just captures it. Bishop captures, d captures, and puts a knight on e4. So great maneuvering with the knight. Also, you would love to push f5 to get rid of the knight, but for the moment your c5 pawn is hanging. So pawn to b6, defending the pawn, and now knight back to c3. b5 and d5 are also excellent squares for the knight. Bishop to g4, stopping the advancement of the e-pawn, and now just pawn to h3, asking what are you doing with the bishop. So bishop back to d7, you still can't move the knight as the rook on a8 would hang, so king to h2, and now rook a to d8. We have knight to d5, again, the knight is just a monster on d5, queen to d6 by Vidit, defending that c7 e7 pawn, queen to d2 connecting the rooks, and now pawn to a4. This also creates a very nice outpost on b3 for Vidit's knight if Vidit chooses. So something like knight d4 to b3 could be a problem for white. And the question is, do you stop knight to d4? Do you play something like e3 right away? Well, you could, but then the knight would find other squares, and Maksim decided to wait for Vidit before executing this e3 move. So he started with rook a to d1, rook a to e1, and now Vidit just goes knight to d4. Now he kicks it away, pawn to e3, and knight to b3 with an attack on the queen. Queen to d1, and now Vidit strikes on the queen side with pawn to b5. We have pawn to f4, counter-striking in the center, and now pawn to c6, chasing away the knight from such an active square. Knight to c3 going for e4, and Vidit says nope, pawn to f5. He's not allowing knight to e4. We have pawn to e4, with all of this tension in the center, and Vidit just plays e captures on f4. You could also maybe remaneuver the knight first, but Vidit has a different idea, which involves a pawn sacrifice. We have rook captures on f4, and now pawn to b4. Vidit sacrifices the a4 pawn to get some activity and to get Maksim's knight out of the center. So okay, you don't really have other stuff to think about. Knight captures on a4 is played. Now comes knight to d4, and here just a captures on b4. Okay, c captures on b4, and now e captures on f5 by Maksim. And here the knight sacrifice was interesting, but it should be followed up with pawn to c5 first before capturing on f5. And it seems to be a crucial tempo for Maksim to get something out of the position. And to give you a quick example, the reason why c5 first is great is because it kind of takes away the g6 square from the black queen. This is no longer an option, and in the line that they played, g6 is a great square for Vidit's queen. Point is that after queen to g6, you will put a knight on b6, and now whatever you play, let's say bishop to e6, there's this very nasty e captures on f5, bishop captures, rook captures on e8, queen captures, and knight to d5. That's the problem move. But of course, it's impossible to spot from that position. And now the point is, if you capture the knight, let's say you capture here with the pawn, just rook captures on d4. If you play something like queen to e5 to defend your knight, still rook captures on d4, and after queen captures, knight to e7 with check picks up the bishop on f5, and after king h8 you will capture here, and okay, you can capture on b2, but now queen to a4, and it's just a completely winning position for white. The problem is the black king's defenses are non-existent, and you will not be able to, once the c6 pawn is taken care of, you will not be able to take care of both the c pawn and the weak g7 pawn. And that's why c5 here is crucial. So he started with e captures on f5 first, but now the difference is bishop captures on f5, and now pawn to c5, queen to g6. And the difference between this position and that position is that one lost tempo. In that position, the knight was already on b6. You had all of those fancy tactics, but here knight to b6 is played, but it doesn't really do all that much, because now Vidit just plays knight to e6, goes after the rook on f4, rook f3, and now knight captures on c5. So very much different than what we've just seen. Rook captures on e8 with check, rook captures, and pawn to d4. Attacking the knight, we have knight to d3 now, as it's nicely defended by the queen and bishop, and rook to f1. And here, rook to e3. Already you can see all of Vidit's pieces surrounding the white king, and while you could maybe put up some resistance with rook to f3, Grandmaster never really takes back his move, and he plays pawn to g4, and this is now just completely winning for Vidit. I'm sure you guys know why, but just in case, feel free to pause the video and win the game for Vidit while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on spotting this wild idea. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is queen to d6 check, or bishop to e4, what Vidit played. Queen to d6 check is a bit more forcing, so I will show it even though it wasn't played. Point is that if you go something like king to h1, if you go king to g1, then just queen d4, and the king is under the mask of the queen. And if king to h1, then bishop to e4, and there is no defense. The threat is rook captures on h3, and you don't have a way of defending that. Whatever you play is just insufficient. You cannot capture with the bishop because then rook captures with check, queen follows up. This is just resigns. But Vidit went for it in a different move order. He went for bishop to e4 first, and the reason why queen to d6 is maybe a bit more precise is because here white could be annoying with something like queen to b3 check, and after king h7, knight to d7. A funny resource, but it does exist. And after queen to d6 check, now you will just move the king to g1, not to h1. And now what do you play? Well, you will play bishop to d5. You will take away the square and this diagonal from the white queen, and the reason why it's so important is if you just play queen captures on d4, there's the perpetual knight to f8 check. So it's a very clever defense. King h8, knight to g6 with check, king h7, knight to f8 check, and so on. But still, after bishop to d5, it would be winning for black. Now you don't really have an option. You have to trade here, captures, and that's pretty much it. Knight to e5 can be played, but still, it will be won by black. But it's a fighting chance. Even if you don't manage to get that perpetual, it's still a fighting chance. But as they were both under a minute here, queen to d2 was played attacking the rook, but this, of course, makes no sense, as queen d6 check will capture on d4, and the rook will be defended, and that's exactly what happened. Vidit played queen to d6 with check, and he was in this position on move 37 that Maksim Chigaev resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. Again, like we mentioned, if king h1 just captures on h3, and if king to g1, now queen captures on d4, threatens all sorts of nasty discoveries. Also, the knight here is hanging, so there's not much you can do, like rook f2. You can even just go for bishop captures on g2. King captures, now queen to e4 with check. King to h2, and now queen e5 check. Moves the king away from the defense of the pawn, if something like king h1. And if king to g1, then you march in with the queen. Queen g1 check, king g2, rook g2, and now rook to e1 check. Game over. Queen captures. You're down a queen, and you are getting checkmated in a few moves. So after queen d6 check, Maksim resigns, and a wonderful victory for Vidit Gujrathi. And yeah, this game perfectly illustrates the difference between one tempo, like first captures on f5 or c5 followed by captures on f5. Huge difference. And Maksim did not go for it. Vidit capitalized on it, and well, the rest is history. And these are the standings, just so I don't forget, after 5 rounds of the World FIDE Rapid Championship. The leaders after 5 rounds with 4.5 points are Magnus Carlsen, Arjun Ergaisi, Ivan Chaparinov, Yu Yonggi, and Vidit Gujrathi. All of them on 4.5. Vidit, as a reward for this wonderful victory with the black pieces, will face Magnus Carlsen in round 6, but that is the fate of every player who does well in big tournaments. And then with 4 points we have a lot of people: Bharat Subramania, Maxim Vashilagraf, Danil Dubov, Anton David Giharo, Alexander Shimanov, Timur Gareev, Kirill Shevchenko, Shangxi Shu, Rauf Mamedov, Konrad Holt playing incredible chess, really fancy moves flying everywhere, Sandeep Panchanda and Pavel Ponkratov, 4 out of 4. And then 3.5 we have some Richard Rapor, Maxim Chigaev, Nihal Sarin, Narayanan, Denis Lazavik, Yang Shistov Duda, Arseny Nesterov, and Denis Maknev. So just the top 25. But yeah, you get the idea. For his victory here, Vidit gets a chance to play Magnus Carlsen, and if you want to win an event like this, you will have to do well against him. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And yeah, do comment, are all animals equal? I would like to thank Seydou Dia, Isaac Davis, Martin Georg Paparik, Carlos Rudy, and Timothy Rosen for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.